Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, The Whys and Wherefores of Monitoring the Monitoring Platform. My name is Helen Owens-Pope, and I'm responsible for global marketing here at Loop One, and I'll be facilitating today's webinar. Before we get into the main session, I just want to run through a few housekeeping items. So today's session is being recorded, and a link will be shared with all attendees following the live broadcast, typically within about 48 hours. We will also be sharing a copy of the slides from today's webinar. All attendees will be muted throughout today's session, but you can submit questions at any time using the Q&A panel in your meeting window. If you experience any technical difficulties, you can drop me a chat and I will do my best to assist. And finally, please let us know how we did today by completing the feedback survey at the end of today's webinar. The survey will pop up in your meeting window as you exit today. So with that, I will hand you across to today's hosts, Kris Maxwell and Jordan Tata, to introduce themselves. Over to you, Jordan.
Thanks so much, Helen. Helen, you're great, and I really appreciate you putting this together, and I appreciate everybody joining today. So yeah, I'm Jordan Tata, the Director of Sales here at Loop One. Been with Loop One about 5 years, and started as a blank slate, as you would call it in the network monitoring world, but have been working very closely with Kris Maxwell since I've been at Loop One, and I think Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000 hours what puts Kris well in the sweet spot of conversations with our clients about SolarWinds, and then being a practitioner before that. I think he's at the very least worked on about 7,500 to 10,000 projects, and I've done a lot of deals with him. So learned a lot, and pleasure to work with Kris on this webinar, and I'm excited to see what he put together for us. Kris, anything to add? Did I overstate anything or understate this time?
Yeah, no, thanks, Jordan. Really appreciate it. Yeah, so I'm Kris Maxwell, the Enterprise Solutions Architect here at Loop One. Basically, my role, if we haven't already talked before, saw a lot of our former and past clients on the list. My role is to work with our clients to understand their business requirements around the SolarWinds platform and help folks make informed purchases, both from software perspective and the services, and then make sure we get started off on the right foot. My background is I started back in data center operations on mainframes, so we didn't have a lot of monitoring back in those days. It was called watch the console for 8 hours until the next shift came in. And then kind of moved in and evolved with the technology over the years into client server and now into cloud. So I've kind of made a career out of operations in the data center and monitoring in general. So really happy to be here with Loop One, and really excited about the content today. So glad to be here, and glad everybody joined us.
Yeah, thanks, Helen. I think we got a poll to start with, and these are always fun. Kris and I have been kind of doing informal polls over the years as we've spoken with folks, but I would like to know for the folks on the call today, if you do have your SolarWinds platform monitored. So we'll leave that up there for a few seconds. It's again a conversation we'd like to have, and the folks on the call are doing it, and then at the end we can kind of give you some real-time data, sample sets, p-values, and all the statistical data we can analyze later if you guys want on a separate call. So we'll keep that open for a few more seconds. I had looks like it's open for another 20 seconds. So I had a debate in my mind: should I go with the Superman analogy or the aliens Mother 6000 computer analogy? I think I'll go with Superman because he's a lifelong hero. So I think of Monitor the Monitors from a sales perspective. The scene where Superman catches Lois Lane for the first time, she's falling off the building, and says, "Don't worry, miss, I've got you." She looks at Superman and says, "You've got me. Who's got you?" And that's what I think of here. And this is again a conversation we're having a lot, and it plays into kind of our methodology and monitoring maturity model here at Loop One, something we call Lime, that we'll touch on a little bit later. But it stems from our experience as well. And this slide's got some good data if you like to know about experience, and I think that certainly speaks to one of the strengths of Loop One. We've been doing this for 12 years. Our founder and CEO, Bill Fitzpatrick, started this company 12 years ago, and we have been working exclusively with SolarWinds that entire time. Some ancillary stuff, but primarily SolarWinds. We've got 25 SCP, SolarWinds certified professionals in the group. And if you've taken that test recently, you know that's no short order anymore. Kris, I think you can speak to that. The tests have gotten a bit more challenging.
Absolutely. There's a lot of surprised people if you've ever taken the legacy one that was, well, an open book test to some of these get pretty tricky. NTA and NCM being a couple that are eye openers for some folks.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're pushing 4,500 global professional services engagements. That's going to be anything from a 2-day health check to, we've done 50-day implementation and trainings for instances, global instances with 3 or 4 separate NPM deployments across the globe. We'll be hoping to cross that 5,000 threshold next year. I think I've been on, like I said, I've been on calls with Kris on I think 1,200 of those now. 100 employees, so we are global, follow sun model, 5 locations, US, UK, Ireland, Germany, and Sri Lanka, where our secure NOC is located. So we can, again, be that managed service provider. I call it the monitor of monitors at that point. So we get real meta with it. Lots of experience on that engineering staff as well, average of 7 years. And I like to point out that the sales staff has similar expertise and experience working with the SolarWinds and the licensing and kind of working through that value, not necessarily what the features are, but how does it help? How does it fit in? And being able to communicate that. So anything else that I missed here, Kris, or went over too fast? Anything like that?
I think we're good.
Fantastic. Helen, we can move forward, and yeah, I kind of touched on it earlier. In my mind, it's a Superman highlight reel, but that's sales guy speak. So what does it mean when we're talking about monitoring the monitors? What does it mean to monitor the monitor, Kris, in your mind as being a longtime practitioner of the tool?
Yeah, so definitely for monitoring the monitor, there's really three things that I have in mind, right? It's one, obviously availability, right? Are the modules up? Is the application running? So availability first, right? That's the first thing we care about. Second, of course, is performance, right? There's nothing worse than a tool that's slow, right? It just, if you go out and fire up your lawnmower or snowblower and you're fussing at it and waiting and trying and struggling, no one's going to want to use it, right? So performance for sure. And then now in today's day and age, you can't complete that thought without talking about security, right? So we have the availability, we have the performance, and just as equally important is the security of the platform. And those are kind of the 3 pillars that I call out for monitoring the monitor.
All the same reasons my mom would give me for popping into my room and making sure I was behaving, as a kid. Random door open, see, hey, what you doing, that sort of thing. So no, but it is again I don't want to say a hot topic, but what strikes me is the number of people that we bring this up and still are like, oh yeah, I never even thought of that. Lesser so these days, but you still see that a lot on your calls and experiences, Kris?
Yeah, absolutely. When we're doing rapid report cards or health checks, one of the first things I look for is, obviously availability and performance. And if I don't have the monitoring in place, I can't get either of those things. And that tells me that we missed a really, really important gap, right? It's an important gap to address, especially since we're talking about a monitoring platform. It seems kind of ironic. So, but unfortunately, it's how it is. So we're here evangelizing and talking the talk, and hopefully we'll commit some folks to invest in it.
Yeah, we can go to the next slide, Helen. So high overview products involved here. Kris, we're not boiling the ocean today, but you want to point out a few of them at least, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So we can take this really far as monitoring the monitor, right? What we're focusing on today are the foundation blocks, right? That begins with network performance monitor, right? Obviously, SolarWinds is an application that does a lot of talking to devices on the network. So we need NPM there so we can monitor that infrastructure that allows us to actually have those communications. NetFlow right next to that, security, right? Who is SolarWinds talking to, right? I think anybody that uses an NMS platform, you have a responsibility to understand what that tool is doing, how your employees are actually using that, and NetFlow is a big part of that. Um, at the bottom of that, server and application monitor, hugely important, right? This is a Windows-based application, could be Linux, right? You know, different platforms. But yeah, SAM is a huge part of this, not only for service availability, but also performance counters, some scripting, all kinds of things there. Server configuration manager or monitor, that's a new one to the mix, probably a newer product for a lot of folks here. That plays a really important role around the security pillar, right? Is, you know, hey, we have this product that has a lot of powerful capabilities in it. I need to know that that server that it runs on is secure, right? If that server gets compromised, you know, it's a big concern to me. So server configuration monitor is definitely a piece. And then off to the right, you'll see we've highlighted database performance analyzer, and then Perfstack, which is really part of core, but database performance analyzer, exactly what it sounds like, right? We're looking at the database on the back end since it is such a critical piece of the SolarWinds platform, to really just understand, you know, what's going on behind the scenes. So those are the 5 products that we're focused on today. We can certainly expand on that, right? There's obviously WPM, there's Pingdom, there's Loggly, there's AppOptics, there's, you know, you can take it pretty far, but to get your basic foundations, this is a good start.
As a self-proclaimed SAM geek, working with it from 1.0 too, so I'm proud of you for only touching on SAM here on this slide. I know the point is there's so much we can go into, and want to keep it with, you know, I kept asking Kris, what would you do running a SolarWinds environment again today with all the bells and whistles? So I think folks will be pleased. Hopefully we'll show you some new things as Kris mentioned, and certainly, you know, we'll be doing more of these, including more products as one is some of them get built out, and two is, you know, as we keep having conversations, you know, is this something that people want to hear about? So yeah, I think I'm excited to see what Kris has built, because it's never ending either. Every time he shows me his environments, it's been updated, changed. He's a certainly I want to say obsessed, maybe a little bit. Is that too strong a word? But whatever the level below obsessed is, that's where Kris is. So, high level setup. Yeah, this is take us through this. What are we talking about when we're thinking about a monitor of monitors? Just quick and dirty. What are we looking at?
Yeah, absolutely. So it all starts for me anyway, starts with SAM, right? Like Jordan mentioned, you know, I started with application monitor as it was called back in the 1.0 days. And so of course I'm going to start with SAM. So it starts with SAM templates, right? We use SAM to look at performance counters, services, processes, database queries, you name it, a lot of different things. So it all starts there. Then once we've got that data, we've got to put it in dashboards, right? So how do we consume it, right? One of the biggest things that our clients bring to us is the user interface. I can't find what I'm looking for. There's too much data here. There's too much noise. It's too convoluted, right? So dashboards, some proper dashboards, Because myself as a SolarWinds practitioner, last thing I want to do is get in here and have to click through 17 screens to find what I want or not find what I want. So dashboard's critical. Maps, of course, I include maps in the mix, not from a traditional network topology sense, but from a logical perspective. Because it's, again, it's a visual aid. It's something that I could look at that's easy to understand and approachable, even if you're not the SolarWinds expert, right? Maybe you're a manager who is responsible for the team, you know, that manages that platform. So everybody can read a map. And then of course, alert strategy, right? You know, we enable all this instrumentation for observability. You know, the next thing is, well, okay, I need to know when things break, right? Whether that's through alerts or maybe we go the report route. You know, that's obviously a big part of all of this.
Oh, excited to see, again, excited to see what you got in store for us. So Helen, go to the next slide and not belabor the point anymore. Let's figure out, you know, very least, how can we make the finger pointing more effective and make sure that that finger is not pointed at you as the SolarWinds administrator before the boss finds out. So I think that's one of the main goals of having this setup. So as Kris is getting that fired up and screen sharing adventures begin, then jump right in and you'll hear less of the sales guy and more of the smart guy for the next few minutes. This is always the moment of truth and highest heart rate for anybody delivering a webinar. Will the screen share work?
So I should be screen sharing. Does not look like it.
Telling Kris before the call, we're SolarWinds experts, not webinar experts. Helen's probably shaking her head and covering her face right now.
Yeah. Do you want to try again, Kris?
Oh,
You
there's
have
share.
control.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yes. There we go. All right. Hey, if I did that correctly.
Perfect.
And I see a question in chat. So I think for Paul, we'll definitely cover your question. Keep them coming if you do have more questions in chat, but we'll definitely address that. You'll see what Kris is talking about and what we've been leading up to here. So, Kris, what are we looking at here?
Okay. Hey, the screen is shared. Victory. All right. I can build SAM templates all day. Just don't ask me to figure out WebEx. Anyhow, so the monitoring, right? So there's a couple ways to approach it from a visibility perspective. What we're looking at here is my no frills, cut to the chase, show me what's going on with my SolarWinds platform, right? So I'm using just a very simple combination of Orion maps as well as some built-in widgets to display the pieces I care about, right? And the goal here for me is keep it simple, right? This is the top level. This is all the way at the very top. We can drill into weeds all we want, right? For SQL, there's about 300 different components we're looking at. I don't need to see that at this first level. I don't want to see that at this first level. What I want to see here are the critical components that make up the platform and their status, right? So in this logical map we've built, we're showing the application server, we're showing the database server, and then my SAM on the back end, right? My SAM templates for the applications itself, the website, and then of course the database backend. Now over here, you're probably wondering, well, what's this VPN tunnel status? So the reason I care about the VPN tunnel status in relation to SolarWinds is I have my environment hosted in Oracle's cloud infrastructure. And in order for me to pull our devices in our data centers, I need to establish secure VPN tunnels into those data centers. So for me, SolarWinds, if I can't talk to those data centers because that VPN tunnel's down, then I've got a problem, right? My monitoring is broke. So for me, these are really the 6 things that tell me at a top level what's going on, right? My network connectivity to do the polling, my 2 servers that are responsible for the application platform, and then the application layer, which is down here, right? Off to the right side, you know, there's a couple different ways to look at it. I can see the applications here, IIS for the website front end. my core applications, obviously, for, you know, the job engine, the polling engines, you know, any of the services there, RabbitMQ, MSMQ, you name it. There's quite a few of those. And then, of course, the database on the back end, right? Any alerts that are currently raised for anything SolarWinds related, not do I have a switch down? Do I have a firewall down? There's another view for that. This is all strictly just platform related, right? So really simple, it loads very quickly. And when I show you how we drill down into things, we can get into the weeds. But this is a really effective and easy to use dashboard, right? I'm a big fan of dark theme because my poor eyes, after staring at the screen for 10 hours a day, something like this with high contrast is not painful on my eyes, which I like. So real easy, right? We don't have to overcomplicate this. Too many times I see a dashboard and there's like 1,000 dots on it, and that just, my OCD gets triggered and I just want to run away.
So Kris, if we weren't a company of 100 people and we had 10 polling engines, or for example, would those be on your view here?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's different ways to present that, right? You know, this SQL Server, that's actually 3 databases, right? There's the NTA flow database, there's the log analyzer database, and then there's a core database, right? It's only 3, but you know, I could just as easily roll up 30, right? Just figuring out how I want to consume the data, right? As a user, how do I want to see this visualized, right? That's the key. And you know, this is scalable, right? If I have 50 Orion servers, I can make this work for 50 Orion servers, right? It's just how I arrange the different status roll-ups and groupings and things like that.
So why is ours red? What'd you do?
I'll get to that in 1 second. So I also wanted to show a different alternate approach to this, right? We were looking at the standard view, or what I call the standard view. Standard to me is keep it simple, stupid, right? Just tell me what's going on. Now, if I want a little bit more granularity, I'll switch over to my Perfstack view. And one thing you'll notice is this is going to take some time, right? That first page, when I click on that summary page, it loads in seconds. This Perfstack, it's not so much, and I'll explain why here in a minute. It's, you know, how much data are you trying to roll up, right? What's the goal there? In this particular case, I'm showing that, hey, we can look at that same kind of availability and status that we saw with that, you know, that nicely, you know, drawn up map. We can get in the weeds here, right? This is all the same type of information I was showing you in that other map, but getting into the weeds, right? Let me see over time. What did it look like an hour ago, right? And we're stacking up the same sort of metrics that I was displaying in that map, but with much more granularity, right? We can, yeah. Anyway, you can get into the weeds here, and we'll go into the weeds in a little bit. But this is just another way of visualizing it. I much prefer, if I'm looking at it, just to say, hey, is everything cool? I'm going to come here first, right? And I can see right off the bat, I have some things that are red and yellow. So first one, we'll just drill into the application server. We can hover over it and it's going to tell me what I need. If I don't want to drill in, look here, I could see, all right, my memory has hit the warning threshold, right? 80%, pretty high. The reason it's triggered like that is, again, like I mentioned, we put this into Oracle's cloud infrastructure, and anybody that's done a cloud move knows it's not as cheap as you think. And it's because one size doesn't always fit all. We've had a lot of good luck with Oracle and their flexibility to size things properly. So I can run it pretty close to where it needs to be without overspending. So we're gonna see some thresholds, you know, that are yellow or red here. But if I drill in, you know, it's gonna take me right into the SolarWinds server, right? So here's my gauge. Registering 80%. Now, if you've used SolarWinds for a while, you're probably saying, well, my node detail view doesn't look anything like this. And you would be 100% correct. Part of my OCD or obsession, as Jordan mentions, is dashboards and views. What I can't stand is coming to a view and seeing, hey, what happened in Thwack today? Or, hey, here's a custom object resource that has nothing defined to it and it's just taking up real estate, drives me crazy, right? If I want to see a summary about a server or a network device, I want just the pertinent information and it better load quick.
Kris,
Or,
we've got a question in
yeah.
chat. Why not use baselines?
So that's a great question. For the demo, we need red things, right? I need some red things. If everything's green, you're going to go, what's he covering up? Why is everything green? I know that can't be true. So I deliberately left things red. Otherwise, I've got nothing to show off. So, but yes, you're absolutely right. Things like baseline, setting baseline thresholds are hugely important, right? What's normal, right? What's normal for this SolarWinds server? Is normal 80% memory? If it is, great. I don't want to see red. I don't want to see yellow. And so you're absolutely right. At this point, I would go and I would set a baseline threshold and I'd say, you know what, 80% is okay. Let's set warning at 85, right? Let's set critical at 95. And again, that is absolutely a best practice and something that we do when we implement SolarWinds platforms for folks. For demos, though, like I said, I need some dirt to work with.
The attendees are all thinking it must be nice to be able to say it's red because I'm doing a demo.
And as a longtime practitioner, I get it. Before coming to Loop One, I ran a SolarWinds platform for a not-for-profit healthcare company for 5 years, and I would get beat up regularly by the CIO and different directors. And why is this not show an outage, or why is this red and it's supposed to be green? So it's really, you really want to dial it in. Because yeah, nobody wants to answer those questions, right? You don't have to explain to the boss, it's really not red. These are not the droids you're looking for, right? It's just, so yes, there are ways, and believe me, in a production environment, I would have all these fine tuned. So if my boss looks at it, everything looks hunky dory and everybody's happy, and I can go back to building maps. But yeah, so we've got some red things here. But again, the point is, my map told me what I needed to know, right? Hover over, I knew memory was a potential issue right now, right? I can drill in, I can get more granularity, but more importantly, looking at my server node detail view, this summary page tells me everything I need, and it doesn't go scroll down for 1.5 miles, right? There's not 20 non-beneficial resources, we'll say it politically correct, down here that I don't need, right? Just give me what I need here. Dependencies, right? Is this server and its associated applications dependent on anything else? Why, yes, it is. It's dependent on the SQL server here, right? So it's about usability there. And then if you look at the left tab, what I've done here is bring some sanity, right? We're looking at all these different related components and aspects of this server, both applications, asset inventory, which if you've used SAM, you know what that is. We get in to look at memory, drivers, installed software, cards, hardware, etc. Right? All of these categories are relevant areas of interest to this particular device, but they're organized in a way that makes sense, right? I don't have hardware health and interface stats and syslog messages and the last 30 changes on my summary page. It's a summary page, right? We've organized that into different compartments here. So when I want to figure out what's going on, I know where to look, right? I don't have to spend time looking through 7-page deep display to find the chart that I want. Couple things to highlight here, going back to the monitor pillar, is security, right? So we're looking at performance, we're looking at availability, right? We've got our availability stats, we've got our performance stats, security, right? So first place I want to look is network traffic, right? So we're using NetFlow. We're capturing all our conversations on our network in the important places. And I really am keenly interested in who SolarWinds is talking to, right? Security breaches, things like that happen. I need to know that my SolarWinds platform or any NMS platform is not being used for malicious intent. one of the easiest ways to do that is look at conversation data from NetFlow to see who is the SolarWinds app server talking to, right? Who are my polling engines talking to? So what I've done here is assembled a group of endpoint-centric NetFlow resources. And basically that means who is L1S OC Orion talking to, right? So on the left, we've got what applications and protocols are being used. So, you know, common suspects there are going to be SNMP, WMI, some HTTPS, some NetFlow data, right? All things that I would expect to see from SolarWinds, right? If I start seeing, say, file transfers or FTP traffic, we've got problems, right? There's something I need to go look, because that's a protocol that I just shouldn't be seeing coming from my SolarWinds server, right? It's a big red flag there. And then in the middle column, the OCD is strong with this one. I have the who's, right? So who is SolarWinds talking to, right? Who is this server communicating with? I've got my top conversations. And then more importantly, I've got my domains. So if we look at this, we can see that my SolarWinds app server is talking to loop1.com, l1train.com, and l1sengineering.com. Those are my 3 internal domains. So 0 remaining traffic is going anywhere outside of my internal domains. That makes me sleep better at night, right? I've got this powerful tool that has SAM, has NCM, has admin, you know, polling credentials. I want to make really, really sure it's not talking anywhere outside my network. And this tells me it's not. Makes me feel really good at the end of the day. And then on the right, this one is how much, right? How much traffic is SolarWinds generating on my network? In pre-sales, one of the more common questions we get is, you know, hey, if I deploy this and I enable all this monitoring, what's the impact to my network, right? How much of my network bandwidth is going to be consumed in the pursuit of monitoring all of the things, right? So a good one to have, just to understand, you know, hey, if we start seeing some anomalies there, maybe it's something to go look at, right? But for us, it's just good to have baseline metrics. And again, that kind of goes back to costing, right? We moved this platform to OCI earlier this year. And the big question is, well, how much is the bandwidth going to cost me, right? The ingress and egress traffic going from Oracle to our data centers, or, you know, if you're an Azure shop or AWS, that's important information that you need to factor in, right? So really easy to see, you know, if the boss asks you how much bandwidth is it, hey, you've got NetFlow for that. Just customize your node detail views and you can see exactly how much data is being transmitted.
Where I'm about to turn it up to 11. How much did it cost me when I did that?
Yeah.
Because I didn't ask anybody.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, hey, we enabled all this whiz-bang monitoring. We wanted to monitor 100 SQL instances. What's the impact, right? You know, I mean, there's a lot of good data there that we have. So the last piece in the security pillar is server configuration. So this is coming from Server Configuration Monitor. And again, you know, with great power comes great responsibility, right? We have this platform that can do so many things and has access to so many things. I need to make 100% sure it's safe, or it's not going to be a good day. And Server Configuration Monitor is one of those products that will do that, right? So looking at this, I can see recent configuration changes, right? And so very similar to NCM, you know, if you've used NCM over the years, you know there's that real-time change detection. But we've got the same thing with SCM in monitoring changes on the server. So here I can see yesterday I installed a couple things, right? I installed SQL Studio Management so I can, you know, run some queries against the database without RDPing and connecting to the SQL server. There was an agent I installed. So this tells me, okay, does someone just install some malware, you know, on my SolarWinds box? So I could drill into that alert, if you will, and see exactly what happened. Here I can see it was Azure Data Studio, and here's my Microsoft Analysis Services. So this was me yesterday installing a new piece of software, right? Very important, right? We need to know if someone installed something on here that could be exploited. So I absolutely have a responsibility to track those things. Down here, you'll notice config changes. So working on the website, doing some custom HTML and CSS sheets, you're going to see changes to XML and config files, right? Did someone put an exploit into the website, right? I mean, all of these kind of things are really important to me as the SolarWinds admin because it's my tool, right? And if my tool gets used to exploit something, it's my butt that's on the line. So SCM is going to tell me if someone's manipulating or modifying anything on that server that could be a potential risk. So very, very important piece of it.
And I think we were talking about this yesterday. So you want to get the who in SCM. Right now it's Windows services and Windows changes primarily. We're hoping to get more information with updates to SCM. You would see that right in that widget, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So with SCM, it is a newer product to the SolarWinds suite. One of the features they're working on is the, and I'll hover over this, who made this change? And this, I just turned this on yesterday. There's an agent install for it. But basically what it allows you to do is it allows you to leverage the file integrity monitoring agent. If you're a LEM or SEM SolarWinds customer, you probably recognize that acronym, FIM. Basically what it does is it looks at the OS level and it looks at the audit logs. It's essentially turning on file auditing, right? So if someone goes in and says, hey, I'm going to change the binding on, the website, or I'm going to go modify this XML config file to do whatever I want to do, it's going to track it at a Windows OS level, and the FIM agent's going to pick up on that event type in the Windows event system and say, hey, so-and-so just made a change to this file that we're watching, and then it's going to raise the alert back in the core platform for us, and then we can drill into it and see, okay, well, hey, what did they change? So very, very cool functionality. It's not, I would say it's probably not where the finish is going to be yet, right? Like we can't track who installed the software, right? When we looked at this one for the SSMS from Microsoft, we couldn't see who actually installed it because that isn't something that's caught at the file level. That's more of a registry change.
Well, Kris, Slack wouldn't exist if SolarWinds users and admins were 100% content with the tool. I think that goes for any tool, right?
Yeah, I mean they're always improving, always adding things. Another piece that you could use is asset inventory. One of the more often overlooked capabilities of that piece of SAM is the software inventory. So what's been installed, right? And you can run reports and look at it and say, hey, I should only have this version of Java here, right? Same thing with the software inventory through SCM, right? What's installed, does it meet my baseline? And if it doesn't meet the baseline, raise a red flag, right? Hey, this should not be here, or this is the wrong version. So SCM is a really critical piece of securing the platform, in my opinion. Even if you just buy an SCM 10 license with the sole purpose of monitoring configuration changes to your polling engines, your primary app server, and your database backend, it's worth the investment. It really is. It's worth the investment and the peace of mind to know that you've got one other angle covered in the security puzzle.
Nice. And as we're going over to the, I think database is next, but yeah, the nice thing about some of these modules that we're highlighting here is that the entry levels on some of these, if you don't own some of these pieces, like SAM is now a node-based offer, SCM has a low entry point as well. There are ways to, what we've done for some clients where they've started out on those modules with just the intention of doing what we're doing here, and ultimately the enterprise or the server team came and said, well, I like what you're doing there. Can we get more of that? Selling larger outlays of SAM or other licensing, just by basically broadcasting it from the, this is what we're doing to protect ourselves, distributing it that way. So what's next there, Kris?
Yeah, so what's next? We've looked at the servers, right? Those server node detail views, yeah, those were custom, right? And when I say custom, I'm not talking SQL scripts or PowerShell scripts or SWCL, right? I'm talking just having a deep understanding of all the different possibilities within the dashboarding capability. We're picking the right resources, right? If you've been down the path of building dashboards, it could be overwhelming, right? You could spend a lot of time there. um, I've just got the advantage of, well, I've been using the platform for like 15 years, so I know which widgets are going to bring value and which ones aren't. So those were highly customized, but there's nothing crazy, right? It's not SWCL, it's not SQL behind it. It's just me understanding what the best resources to use are, and then my OCD taking over and turning it into a really great user experience. So anyway, getting now to the application layer, right? We've got the core apps, we've got the website, and we've got the database backend. So we'll take a peek at the website. What we're using for that, right out of the box, App Insight for IIS. Great template, does a great job. It covers so many things around the website, from just basic response time, right? 91 milliseconds. How are my application pools doing? My SSL cert expiration, right? We've all had that bad day where you can't get to the website because the cert expired, right? App Insight for IIS is doing a lot of that heavy lifting for us. I had to do some setup on the front end for permissions and enabling remote execution for PowerShell and whatnot. But once it's set it and forget it. Now we're just consumers of the data, right? Some of the pieces that you may not have seen before, application connections, right? So this is turning on the packet capture analysis at the server level to show us who we're talking to. So in this case, we can see that the IIS front end is talking to the SQL backend, right? Perfect. Where's my dependency, right? How's that connection going? What happens if I take that database server down? What applications are going to be impacted, right? But if I'm in charge of the website, I can look here and say, hey, all my services look great, but over here I'm seeing critical on the SQL server. So I can go knock on the DBA's door and say, hey, guys, fix your stuff, right?
CTO says the website's slow, right?
Yeah,
Slow as the new down.
why is this? Yeah, it's down. Oh my gosh, it's down. Oh, it's just slow. And it's slow because we have maybe a storage bottleneck, right? Maybe it's a memory bottleneck. You'll also notice that we're pulling in DPA data. So database performance analyzer, we have that integrated on our platform. And I am watching our database, right? L1S OCI SQL. And from here, we're taking some of the more important bits from DPA, and I'm just bringing them into an application template so folks that aren't DBAs can look and see if there's anything red, related to the database, right? Gives them, mean time to point the finger, I guess, probably the way to phrase it. So yeah, I mean, this really easy way to give people some of the data without going too far into the database weeds, right? So that's
mean time to accusation. And I think the same methodology for, digging into code level stuff, because AppOptics from SolarWinds has that IIS plugin, but this is for the admin. We're not, we can just get you to the point where you say you call that cloud team that has the AppOptics tool or whatever third-party tool you're using for that kind of investigation, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this lets you know that you need to go into those weeds, right? So here we're looking at the SQL backend, right? Again, we're using App Insight for SQL because why reinvent the wheel, right? It does a good job of monitoring all the things. I wouldn't necessarily turn it on for alerting because some of these I feel are better for forensic analysis and really deep dive. So for my alerting posture, I have very specific KPIs that I want to alert on because I know some things like when maintenance is running, there's going to be some spikes and things like that. Yeah, we could put thresholds on it. We could put tolerances on it. But again, keep it simple, right? Keep it simple. Let me focus on the things that I know can and will break over time, because nothing's perfect, right? Otherwise, we would all be driving the cars that we drove in high school. But you know, nothing's perfect. So, but I want to focus on the most critical things. I don't want to alert on everything under the sun, or you get the, you know, boy who cried wolf, right? And you end up chasing thresholds forever, and it's just not a business I want to be in. So what we're looking at here again is the SQL backend of it. And again, I've built in a simple map, right? I don't want to look at all the charts. I can if I want to, right? I can drill into all these, but let me just look at the basics, right? My drives, right? Am I out of storage on my transaction log drive? Oops, that happens. Most folks probably won't admit it, but that does happen, right? You run out of space on your data drives, or your T logs go crazy and it fills up the drive. Off to the right, of course, we have SQL services. This is actually just a group I built around the key services, and it's rolling up the status. And then the individual databases, right? So my core database, my NetFlow database, and my Orion Log Analyzer database. Really easy to see, you know, what the current status is. And again, we can drill into these, right? But here's my 20,000 foot view. You know, application availability, you'll notice some blips here. I deliberately left these in, right? I was asked, hey, do you want to get rid of those? Do you want to get rid of those? What you're seeing here, these unknown status, this was actually caused due to memory shortage, right? When I went and I looked and troubleshooted at that time, I was seeing unknown error, memory shortage, you know, it's something along that lines. And what it told me is, hey, I need to bump the RAM on my SQL server, right? Or I need to look at, well, why is it chewing up all the RAM, right? Should I just throw more money at it? So I left this here, right? These are the kind of things that having the proper monitoring in place is going to give you, right? If I'm not monitoring, if I'm not using this template, I don't know this is happening. All I know is some user goes to their router and they go, well, why does my interface chart have gaps in it? Well, gee, I don't know, because I'm not monitoring anything. So we've got the monitoring in place to capture that, and we've got some real world incidents that happen. And now based on the frequency, I can say, you know what? It's 4 times today. There's little blips, maybe a data gap. Is it really worth paying Oracle more money for some more RAM? Maybe so, right? That answer might differ for, you know, different folks. So
Kris, as we were talking about this in preparation, you know, you said that there were some, you know, thresholds and alerts that you have custom specific for, you know, this page in particular, but across the entire discussion today, right?
yeah, absolutely. Some of the thresholds are modified, and some of them, you know, we leave them off to get some red, right? You know, bumping things like the RAM and size of files and things like that.
I think you mentioned like the index fragmentation query was one that's going to run. You want it running a certain way outward, but not inward.
Correct. Yeah. So that's a good one, and we hear that quite a bit with the App Insight for SQL template. When you apply it, there's sometimes you run into indexes that are always fragmented, right? NetFlow, big example of it, right? And it's not a flaw or a problem with SQL. It's just the nature of the data and the way that the data is being stored, right? NetFlow conversations. You know, you got thousands of conversations. The data is being correlated to endpoints, and then it's being summarized, and then it's being rolled off because our retentions and things like that. So it's like a hard drive with millions of MP3s on it that you're moving and removing. It's going to get fragmented over time. It's always going to be fragmented just by nature of how that particular application works. So when I'm looking at this template, I go and I see, okay, where's my indexes? You know, I go and I look and you see, all right, well, why is this index always at like 99.9% fragmented? Well, it's just the way it is. You can rebuild that index tonight and it'll be that fragmented again tomorrow, right? So it kind of supports what I said earlier about the alerting, where I do very specific KPI based alerts for the SQL backend, and I don't just do a blanket, email me if App Insight for SQL goes critical, because I would not sleep at night. I would be bombarded with messages, and they're valid messages, right? That index is really fragmented and it's probably not great for performance, but there's nothing I can do about it, right? So I either need to suppress it or I need to not alert on it. So, but
we're coming up on time for our demo to be done. If there's one last thing to show and where can fit into this, what would it be?
yeah, one last thing to show. One of my favorite improvements to the platform, and again, you know, this Perfstack, it's going to load slow, and it's going to load slow because I threw everything in the kitchen sink at it, right? I want to pivot into that and show the power of that type of dashboard view, and really show where it's useful or where you might want to use this, right? So if you've not used Perfstack, do yourself a favor, go explore Perfstack today. It's part of core. You already bought it, you already own it. It's extremely powerful from a troubleshooting and visualization perspective. So let me show you. So basically what you're looking at here is a Perfstack project that I built for Monitor of the Monitor, right? And you'll notice a couple names here in availability. L1SO Orion, that's my app server. OCI SQL, that's my database server. And what I've done is, from that first map that we looked at, I've taken that same context of availability, performance, and just try to put it into this to show, here's what not looking a map looks like, right? Here's what it looks like with all the data points and over time. And so we're looking at availability, we're looking at events, and we're looking at configuration changes. And you'll notice all these blips, like right here. I'm gonna highlight, let's highlight this section right here. So here's some red, and it's under alerts, right? And we're looking at it, it's for the application server, right? And then down here, we also notice we have some alerts on the SQL server, which I know was memory. But I took a snapshot here of a particular time of interest. So I'm gonna drag this here a little bit because I want this spike. Let's get that spiker right there. So if I select this area, right, we can scroll up and say, okay, there was an event here. Well, was there an alert raised, right? Well, let's look at some of our KPIs. Do we have bad response time? Was CPU pegged? Was memory pegged, right? What was happening at that amount or that exact moment in time? And then if we come over here and we expand this, we can go into what's called the Data Explorer. And let's click on one of these. And from Data Explorer, it's going to show us that, hey, there was a configuration change at this time, right? Something happened, right? Someone made a change at that time that is actually could have been the reason for my problem, right? So let's see if we can't find these guys here. And actually drilling into it, of course, will take us to the server, and then we can go into the server configuration screen, and it'll show us, you know, what was actually changed at that time. So just, again, a different way to look at this, you know, as opposed to a map or a dashboard. So, but definitely very powerful.
What I like most about this is the pastel color scheme that you've selected.
Right? Here's a good one. I picked a good slice in time here, right? So we picked this, we had a blip, we had an obvious alert. Well, what was going on, right? What was happening at 9:40 a.m. this morning, right? And we can see, all right, so page writes per second was in warning. We also were looking at a critical value for work tables created. So again, this is great, right? And we can expand on this. I just took less than a dozen different metrics that are relevant, and we put them in here, and we can see, you know, again, at that given point in time, you know, what was really happening. So
awesome. So Kris, high level, when we're looking at what we've seen today, how much of this percentage wise do you think is custom? And I think maybe more importantly for some of our customers, how much of this that's custom would have to be done to get what the information, or if you just redone things so that you to look at things the way you like to do them, or there's certain things that we really need us, you know, to dig in there and tweak a little bit.
yeah, so a lot of it is custom, but the underlying monitoring, a lot of that was out of the box, right? The App Insight for IIS, out of the box. App Insight for SQL, that was out of the box, right? There's some configuration you have to do. The core services and performance counters and KPIs, I started with an out of the box template, right? If you own SAM, you know there's an out of the box template for primary app server. There's one for additional polling engines, and there's one for additional web servers. But what I've found with those templates is they don't capture everything, right? They don't capture how many agents are connected to the primary. They don't capture how much net flow data you're transferring. They don't look at, a lot of different kind of in the weeds KPIs, as I like to call them. And so I've added a lot of things to that. The dashboards, yeah, I mean, this Perfstack, I built that. It only took me 15, 20 minutes because I know what I'm doing. The server node detail views, yeah, we put some hours into that just because of, hey, I'm an artist, man.
Well, we've got the benefit of 25 engineers doing this every day, all day, not to mention your experience. So how we can help, it doesn't have to look that way. We have conversations like this. Kris and I rarely give people time back on calls, as they say in sales. We like to talk. We like to go through this stuff. But that's step one. Like, schedule a call. If you're already a customer, get time on our engineering calendars, and we'll give you that typical setup time. And I think, Kris, you'd mentioned that there isn't kind of an average for our deployment of SLX with a few apes. We can get something like that done in about how long, you think?
Couple days, right? We're talking SAM, SCM, NPM is really just fundamental. It should already be there. NTA a little bit. So yeah, usually a couple days, right? And it depends on how picky we want to be with the server node detail views. I'm kind of a perfectionist, so I go a little overboard on that. But
yeah, we're working a deal right now. I think we're on call number 6, just talking dashboards. Okay, we like the conversation. We have the conversation. Every client is unique in these cases. What do you need to see? When does somebody else need to see something, maybe more importantly? And then what if nobody can see anything, I guess, Kris? That's where we start talking about extending this monitoring.
yeah, yeah, making sure we have the right products in play, making sure we have the right nodes in discovery, all that. And that's what we could help you with on the pre-sale side. Is I really I could focus a lot on what we have to work with and identifying that, and then translating that into an approach. That's where my experience really comes into play.
And these are tools within SolarWinds too that we're also, so it's not necessarily you have to go outside of SolarWinds either. We're talking Pingdom, App Optics, WPM. That's one that Kris, we're on the fence of, do we have enough time to get into WPM on top of everything else? So clearly not. We're rushing through these last few bullet points, but the next step, I think, even from there is, can we take this applied, to other tier 1 applications?
Yeah, absolutely, right. Right now, today, we just showed you how to monitor SolarWinds, right? We can take the same concept of the dashboards and the monitoring philosophy and put it at SharePoint, right? Put it at O365, put it at any of your critical tier 1 applications. The principles here all apply, right? It's just, this is a context that's really familiar to us. So
Helen, if you want to get to the next one, give these fine people their day back. But here's how we can do it. Multiple ways for us to deliver services on your schedule when you need it. From a quick check-in, and we'll give you a quick diagnosis. To look again, we'll be that monitor of monitors in our secure NOC with our ITOM service options. So quick phone call, I can set you up with some time with Kris and myself to go through any of these offerings and packaged around whatever goals and roadmap items you have for 2022. Helen, I think we've got one more slide and we'll call it a day. Keep an eye on our LinkedIn corporate site. Helen's great with email. She doesn't do too much. They always look nice. more webinars will be coming. Hopefully we'll stay relevant. If there are any questions, I know Kris and I will both be willing to answer live questions. There weren't any chat, that's fine. We knew we were dealing with an experienced audience, but if anybody wants to jump in, I think, Kris, I'm happy to stay on for a few more minutes if anything's there.
Yeah, I see one question that I can answer pretty quick about agents for the platform diagram. So yeah, quick answer on that is for the majority of what I showed you today, the agent isn't required, right? Most of what I was showing you was gathered or collected using SNMP and WMI polling, a couple other protocols for one-offs. But some of the functionality like the packet capture analysis, definitely that's something that requires an agent. The automatic application connections and dependencies, that requires an agent. We can do that manually without, but yeah, there's really only a couple smaller features or functionality that actually require the agents to be deployed. So not a hard requirement.
Another one about yeah, for visualization comes up a lot. Multiple tools, multiple ways to do that. I think I've seen a lot of cool things coming with Orion maps, and even Kris, last couple of days learning different ways to manipulate and visualize things there. I think we're excited about what's next with Orion mapping.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody. Helen, I don't know if you have some tidying up to do here, but I'll say we really appreciate time. Really appreciate attendance. You'll get a copy of these slides. Happy to take calls and schedule time whenever you need a shoulder to cry on, or you want to talk about what's next in your environment. Thank you.
Covered it perfectly, Jordan. Thanks very much. And just a quick reminder, if you can complete the feedback at the end, that would be great.
Wonderful.
Thanks, Jordan. Thanks, Kris.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everybody.